Hey, welcome to the weedout, where we talk about the nonsense and weed out the bullshit in our backyard. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, along with my co host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna May Booty.
And this week we have a special guest, Jeff Raymond, a local independent journalist of Millbury, Massachusetts. And on Twitter, they have a project called the Mass Transparency Project, and they're here to talk more about it. I'm sure it's more than just on Twitter, but it's has a lot to do with records requests, as we've spoken in the past with journalists such as Andrew Quimir, and Joanne and I have given our anecdotes on records requests, the importance of the difficulty with, and what you can glean from records. Uh, in the past, we've covered the Massachusetts Post Commission, which I'm sure Jeff of the Mass Transparency Project will probably have a lot to say about. So, if anybody's curious, we've spoken about the Post Commission on previous episodes. Just so you know, the Post Commission stands for Peace Officer Standards and Training. Notice the play of words. Instead of saying police officer, they exchange it for peace officer here. And we've mentioned this on episodes with our good friend Laura Saylor out in Eastern Mass. That's episodes 21 and 28, if anybody wants to go back. And the episodes with Andrew Quimir doing records requests, and he's actually in the middle of a lawsuit with multiple DAs across the state over records requests. We talked about them on episodes 19, 22, 23, and 38. So there's a lot going on here, but hopefully we can make it interesting, and hopefully people listening will have a better idea of what's going on in their backyard. What do you think, Joanna?
I agree completely. You know how I feel about records requests in general. Like I was disclosing before recording, I'm the local lady sometimes who's doing that here. So when I get to hear about these larger projects that are really focused on transparency, I'm just super excited. So I can't wait to dive into it. How about you, Spence? How are you doing
I'm
today?
doing pretty good. As we were talking off air, the heat has been pretty oppressive, along with the monsoon rains spilling sewage into our overworked infrastructure, into our rivers and waterways, and people can't even go to the beaches and the ponds and all that stuff. Uh, so it's been kind of one of those really, yeah, some people like the heat, but here's one of the downsides with the heat and then the quick flash storms we've been getting here in Western Mass. And I'm sure Eastern Mass is not immune to that. But that's just to give a placeholder for future listeners where we're at in the climate war. So remember, as we said in the last week's episode, invest in infrastructure, poop tubes over popo, right, Joanna?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's where we're at. Just trying to remain comfortable as best I can. I'm thankful I have a cool basement to hang out in. For all those haters on Twitter that say we live in our mom's basement, I actually live in my own basement. And besides, again, why is it an insult that you have a good enough relationship with your parent that you can live with them as an adult? I feel very jealous of those people. Anyways, it's enough of our shenanigans. We should introduce our guest, Jeff
Jeffrey,
Raymond.
thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you prefer Jeff or Jeffrey. I'm sorry I didn't ask that before.
Oh, that's fine. I usually go by Jeff, so all
Awesome.
is well.
Awesome.
And
And
thanks
so
for having me.
yeah, we're really excited for you to be here and talk a little bit. If you could just I know we introduced you a little bit beginning, but feel free to elaborate on that. And then we were just hoping that you could kind of give us some about what the Mass Transparency Project is in a nutshell, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. So I started out similar to what you were alluding to earlier. I was a local gadfly turned local columnist for the local paper. And then when that got bought out by an IT company down in New Jersey, I opened up my own kind of local thing that is sort of trying to get off the ground. But as part of that, to bring it around to why I'm here today, I got the idea once the Post Commission. Well, let me give some background. So,
Sure.
the Post Commission, which Spencer mentioned earlier, they were tasked with a number of things, but the two that are most relevant to us as citizens of the state are the recertifications that the Post Commission has to do for all the officers in the state, all 20 something thousand of them, and they were going to make a searchable database of officer complaints. So all the individual police departments in the state sent off all of their listed complaints over the last decade. And the idea was that the Post Commission was going to put them online. You interact with a cop, you can look them up online. You can see, have they had problems in the past? Are they decent people or are they kicking dogs? That sort of stuff. So that was supposed to launch in May of 2022. They said, oh, it's about a week away. Oh, it's about 2 weeks away. Suddenly it's December and we have nothing. And they were like, we took a lot of information in that we just don't feel like we need anymore. So, this is what we want this time. And they completely they nerfed the entire database. They were like, this is, you sent us too much information. We really only need to know about the stuff that's sustained, that the stuff that actually resulted in actual punishment or remediation. That's the only stuff we need. Well, I am a radical transparency advocate. As far as I'm concerned, if something's put out there, if they develop something, they should be putting it on a website to begin with. I shouldn't have to go searching for it. But I'm annoying, and I decided to write every individual town in Massachusetts, all 351 of them, and ask for the records they sent to the Post Commission.
I don't think that's annoying. I think that's awesome. But so thank you.
It's awesomely annoying, I think, is the best way to put it. I always say I'm annoying, but I'm not unreasonable. And, I don't think that it was unreasonable for us as citizens of the state to know what is going on with our police. In 2020, when they passed that police reform bill, part of their purpose was to give us more transparency into policing in the state. And somebody has gotten into post ear at this point and has been like, we don't really need to be that transparent about it. But the law hasn't quite caught up to what Post has done and what everybody else is doing. The police unions have a very big problem with this entire thing. And that's what turned this. You guys would not have heard of my project if it wasn't for the police unions, because they all work together with their groups to try and deny the records through a central process. So they're suing over the certification stuff. And they worked with the Chief of Police Association to deny me these records because, hey, if Post doesn't want them, why does anybody else?
Oh, okay.
That's basically their argument. And they used a very specious sort of thing about the lawsuit, even though it's not, go figure, they're trying not to be transparent. Shocker of the century. But I got 225 or so identical emails from across the state, all saying the exact same thing, because some guy in one of those central, association groups sent them boilerplate language saying, if you want to deny these records, you could use this. So they just copy and pasted it. It's ridiculous. They copy and pasted an email that had a typo in it. And that's how I figured it out, because this shows the sort of competency that we're talking about here. It had a very obvious typo that you wouldn't make over and over again. So it's like, I ended up foiling I ended up getting a public records request, I should say, for the language you're using here, that those emails to see who was sending it, because I didn't know where it was coming from. And that's how I uncovered it was like the Mass Chiefs Association or whatever, who will not talk to me now, who's that's a whole other thing. But, what was supposed to be a 10-day turnaround for 300 things, I just sent out another five appeals this afternoon. I've sent out 250 something appeals to the state based on this language and based on stuff since then. It's become a beast of its own.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the not quick but dirty version of what I'm dealing with.
Put my color on it. I didn't know anything about first of all, I didn't even realize the Chiefs had a chief association. It makes sense as their management. But it's not shocking to me that they recently have been found that their cadets are systemically cheating in their academies in Massachusetts. and the people running these associations are doing copy and paste like a high school football team is getting the answers to the test. It's like the most on the nose caricature of
brazen.
kinds of dudes that we knew in high school that became cops, and it's like it's the same archetype, and that's just my opinion.
And it's just, it's like, so I am a known entity in the town of Millbury, by virtue of doing a lot of different boards and being the spanner in the works, as it were. We went to town meeting back in May, and like the chief of police of Millbury, who I grew up with, who I've known my entire life, small town nonsense, he comes up to me, he's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing okay." He's like, "You sure about that?" I'm getting calls after calls about you from other chiefs wondering who this guy is and if you're a crank or not. He's like, "I haven't said anything bad about you, but it's such a I was very skeptical of that sort of like blue wall of silence type thing. Like, of course, individual departments, individual stuff is going to have a thing, but I was like, that's a little. It always felt like a little much. And then like I watched them literally construct the wall in front of me.
So I don't
it's
know
insane.
if you're familiar with this story that happened out of Holyoke. Councilor Maldonado Velez, counselor at large in Holyoke, referred to the Holyoke police as a gang and how they show up in force, and how the Holyoke Patrolmen's Association responded through their sergeant of communications, Captain Moriarty, or Captain, I should say, Captain Moriarty, Officer Moriarty, as I call him, the Gobot Goebbels. They said, "We're not a gang. And since we're calling on the counselor at large to abstain from voting on our funds because he's questioning us."
Naturally, yeah.
Yes.
So they said, "We're not a gang, so here we're gonna threaten you in some gang thing." So it's like, Jesus Christ. So yeah, I can imagine that was when it broke for me. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm with. They proved to me, because I was like, okay, as a counselor in a small city, maybe you don't throw that bomb. Let let your surrogates, let your constituents say that shit, but like, maybe you as the bridge don't do that. And then to see them respond the way they did was like, well, he knows them better than I do, apparently. So
you will be unsurprised to know that Holyoke has been one of the holdouts up to this point.
Right. Yeah.
not shocking. Not shocking.
Yeah.
It's not shocking at all, actually.
We have a Sergeant Reyes who got a promotion since his accusations. He's in court with the subordinate that accused him of sexual misconduct, harassment, etc., physical touch. I don't know how we're not sure, but
we don't want to lose the iTunes rating any more than you already have. But it's fascinating.
And he was director of internal affairs.
Of course,
he was in charge
of course.
So it's like, of course.
like the thing is, like, I feel like I've learned so many interesting through lines through digging these records out that it's like, I understand fully and completely why these officers don't want this out there, because they don't want people connecting the dots. I'll give one really critical example for me. I found this one, the town of Douglas, which is one of the Blackstone Valley towns around here, about 20 minutes south of Worcester. They were kind of resistant, but then I finally get the records, and there's one guy that has 2 firearms violations, and I'm like, wow, that's once is a mistake, twice is something else. The second one resulting in him getting demoted. I'm like, wow, I wonder if this guy's still there. I look him up on the line. He is the school resource officer in Douglas now.
Oh goodness. And he had issues with the gun stuff. It's just, to me, like, if you had 2 issues with guns and your job requires you to have a gun, that is, I don't know, the demotion thing, to like work with kids but still have a gun.
The officer is tied into the Sandra Birchmore case in the Canton Stoughton area, was put in SRO, and he's currently serving as an SRO, and he should not be around young people, like actual danger. I can't remember which one. It was like maybe it was Healy, or he might be the one that works for TSA. Doesn't matter. Like
Well, yeah, I
Either
just
way,
feel
he
like,
shouldn't be in the position he's in.
yeah, like any of them.
been accused of something, and then you put them in SRO positions or in TSA where they have to judge people based on their skin color. Like it's like, geez.
Well, and as a parent in like that town of in Douglas, like I would be scared actually.
Well, the thing is, like, who do any of the parents in Douglas know this? I don't
Maybe
know.
not.
I couldn't find any news articles about his firearm violations. It probably didn't make it in the media. There's no
Right.
local media around here for it to get to, It wasn't going to be in the Blackstone Valley Express that a cop keeps dropping his gun,
Right.
But it's, those are the types of things you'd think people want to know. I had another example that I tweeted about in Duxbury at the beginning of July. One of their officers got indicted for falsifying witness records and intimidating a witness. The Boston Globe put this story out there in the world, and they listed the guy as a 24-year veteran of the force. I'm like, okay, sure. I look him up. Duxbury has 26 complaints over the last 10 years. 13 of them are this guy.
Whoa.
You think that's context you'd want to share with people. You think that's context that might give you an idea as to what is going on here. It goes back to Andrew Quimera's Brady records from the list there. You want to know what is going on so you can, either have a solid defense if you do get in trouble, or can actually connect these dots together and make something happen, And
Absolutely.
it just drives me nuts because I'm monologuing, but go for it, right? A lot of these departments, their biggest thing is like, we got a lot of good guys here who don't have any problems, and they shouldn't be on some master database. And I'm like, you know what? If I get pulled over by somebody and I look up this officer and he's got nothing on his record for 20 years on the force, well, I'm not gonna think he's targeting me for something. I'm not necessarily going to think that. I'm going to give a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt as opposed to the guy who has 13 complaints against him, even if only
Absolutely.
6 are sustained. It's that old saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and
yes, totally.
they don't understand that, all these guys were like, yeah, we got a few bad eggs, but most of my guys are good guys. Well, the best way you can prove that they're good guys is by exposing how they're not problem officers, except for the guys that are the problem officers, Otherwise, I'm just taking your word for it. I don't know.
Okay, I prefer the transparency, and I just wanted to point out that, like, in most jobs out there for all of us listening, like, how many complaints would you get before you were fired, too? Just like in a normal job without a gun or like any
get
of
13,
the
that's for sure.
Yeah, me either.
I would like to just combine those 2 points that you both just made about complaints on the job and sunlight being the best disinfectant, and about just tie in what we try to do here on this platform, like having people like Jeff and Andrew on talking about these concepts and doing the digging. This is, when people ask like us as abolitionists, what's your plan? Well, part of it is to do the nitty gritty of looking through the records and like, yeah, of course we want to give the world benefit of the doubt and not assume everything is corrupt, because how can you live in that such negative worldview? But this is the work. So this is a challenge to anybody that, if you're wondering how to fight back on authoritarian and just idiotic management of government, whether it's authoritarian or idiotic, it doesn't matter. It's bad for all of us. So yeah, it's doing the little work. It's either giving money to the journalists. So this is a good time to shout out. Do you have any what is
I do not have a buy me a coffee link up yet. I hoping in the long term that I can turn the masstransparency.org site into a sort of a project-based nonprofit that will require me to actually bring other people on board and actually do things that aren't appeals to the state for 2 hours every day. But that's kind of my longer term vision for it. Like, I always say when I get caught up in these things, I never expect them to snowball into something much bigger than they are. But it's like, nobody else is going to do it. unless somebody takes the lead in this case, you know? I don't feel like I should have been the first person to go to each town individually for these post records. And it shouldn't have taken until April of this year for somebody to do it, you know? And that's not a knock on any other journalist or knock on any sort of thing. Everybody's got their own priorities and their own stuff. God, I have a full-time job, a wife, a son, and a mortgage. You know, I don't necessarily have time for this either. But, you know, if I'm not doing it, this would have never gotten done, you know? And I'd love to see the mass transparency site become something more of that, where it doesn't need to be necessarily just police, although that's a very easy target right now. You know, but it's about finding that capacity and finding those people and finding those stories that we want to tell, that we want to know more about, that the average citizen doesn't have the time or the wherewithal to pursue.
Yeah, and this is an example of building outside the institutions and structures for the community. And it doesn't have to be centralized. It can be like, you know, we're over here at the Weed Out, you're over there at Mass Transparency, you got so and so somewhere else doing their thing, and we're all kind of bumping into each other, but like everybody's gonna have their different niche. Like I don't know if you're familiar with the Young Jerks.
Oh yeah.
So like that's about
I'm familiar.
like, that's a lot about an an emerging industry. And you know, like it's like a brand new industry that has lots of sketchy things going on in it and workers' rights issues. And that's their lane over at the Young Jerks. Here it's about, you know, unions and police, unfortunately, because they're the natural enemy of organized.
I'm multifaceted, Spencer. Calm down.
And then Joanna brings, I just, you know, like everybody does their own thing, and it's really important to honor that, and at least go check out Mass Transparency if you're on Twitter for sure. And
Yeah. So it's funny you say that about, like, you know, the different areas you come in, though, because it's like, you know, like I've gotten a lot of attention from abolitionist Twitter, from the folks who are very anti-police. You know, and I'm not just talking about the people who are on this podcast. You know, and the thing is, like, that was never my lane. Like, I am like a historical nerd in town. Like, I spend my days at the Asa Waters Mansion. I care about, you know, give me fiscal policy any day of the week, you know? But here I am now, you know, this became the sort of radical transparency crusade that I was not anticipating for, but just happened to be the police that decided to poke my button, you know?
I do.
And just to point out the intersectionality here, you said you like financial policy and that. Well, this is the intersection of state violence and financial policy. So, you know, this is costing, like, not to be crude, because human life is not really to be compared to money, but this also, even if they weren't taking lives, even if it was just about loss of funds, I mean, how they abuse the overtime systems, like it's not just about police complaints, like there's a million problems with that institution.
there is a
point out.
There is a public records project waiting to be picked off a tree somewhere that will cross-reference what the shifts are in a department with when the arrests happen. I am sure that if you went ahead and did that with all the individual departments in this state, you would find a very interesting pattern around the 3 times a day where the shift changes. Because it's very easy to go ahead and make your tickets and arrests when you can dock a couple hours of overtime filling out the stuff at the end of the day. There is a project there. I haven't quite figured out how to pierce that veil, but you know, somebody is going to come up with it, and it's going to be very fascinating. But you know, to your point, Spencer, about the finances on it, it's like when I started getting the rejections that were all the same over and over and over again, I reached out to the person at the Mass Chiefs Association, and I'm like, listen, you and me both know that this is not going to hold up long term. I'm like, let's just talk like 2 gentlemen here. You know, you're not on solid ground here. He didn't reply back, but I'm like, you're going to cost your constituency, which is the chiefs of police, which are the officers who do the records requests, you're going to cost them a lot of time and money fighting these things. And you know they're going to lose. what are you going to do? Do you want to keep at it and help them do each and every one of these? Or do you want them to have to go through the appeal process for every single one? Well, guess what? They've probably spent, 5 to 10 hours per community working on these things because they sent me a form email. They could have just taken 30 minutes, found the 3 spreadsheets, sent them off to me, and I would have been, have a nice day, guys. Thank you.
Right.
But no,
They're making it harder. Yeah.
Instead, it's like, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars that these communities are spending in compliance costs that they could be spending on literally anything else. You can go ahead and be all, think defund the police is the dumbest thing in the entire universe. This is what needs to be defunded.
Exactly.
It's a waste of time and energy that, I'm sorry. I don't know if it got out there in Western Massachusetts, but the town of Dudley, it's a Western County town right on the border of Connecticut. They have to shut down their library, shut down a bunch of different things. They laid off a ton of teachers. They even laid off a few police officers and stuff. They have 2 full-time firefighters now because they couldn't pass an override because they ran out of money. They were patching it over with COVID relief funds for the last few years. Dudley was one of the major holdouts on these forms.
Oh, geez.
I
That's the
can
thing.
absolutely guarantee you that this chief of police spent hours working on trying not to get these out there and trying to keep these things. That's thousands of dollars in labor costs that he was, that's how the municipal accounting works. You look at it in terms of how many hours something costs.
Right.
And it's thousands of dollars. These are not cheap individuals.
Right, exactly.
The Paxton chief of police makes $175,000. Paxton has 6,000 people.
Whoa. See, these are the things, like the information that, like, I know, like you said, it was annoying, but as someone who loves transparency, awesomely annoying so much. Like, I think people should know that in a town of 6,000 people, you are being defunded by the police if someone's making $175,000 a year plus benefits and probably overtime. Like, that's why your town is fucked. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
It's like Dudley has a $900,000 budget hole that they have to fill at a special town meeting at the end of the month. And they have also these extra wrinkles where they regionalize their schools and everything. So, it's a rural town. Millbury was in a similar boat like 10 years ago where we couldn't pave our roads. Our roads were abysmal. And it's just like stuff like that, where it's like, you know what, we can't pay our roads, but do you know who gets a new cruiser every 2 years?
Right, and a raise every year, no matter what. Like, sometimes it's 5 to 10%. It's a good amount too.
And I won't put the guy on the record here, but the very important person in town that I've spoken with on this is like, we do all this stuff to make sure our police feel comfortable in town, but they're still billing us full price when we want them to do the Little League parade or something like that. They're not going to give us any sort of a, oh no.
Or like volunteer their time.
Yeah. God forbid.
Yes. Well, so how can listeners, if they can't give you money, how can listeners find you for updates, and can they help you in any way?
Okay, so first and foremost, I do not want money from people.
Yes.
Use your money on stuff that you need, make your life better. With that said, masstransparency.org is the place to be. I have it set up as sort of like a Substackian type newsletter. It's not on the Substack platform itself, but that's a newsletter. I'll be sending stuff out once or twice a month. This won't be killing your inbox. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff in Milbury. The Mass Transparency name is a little long for Twitter, so you can find the Mass Transparency Twitter there, and I tweet out a lot of random stuff I find in there. Just pay attention. If you're interested in helping do some records requests for me, I won't say no to the help.
It's fantastic work. Thank you for doing all of this. Like we said, it's just, if someone doesn't, who will? So thank you. And I'm thankful for all of the citizen journalists and local people out there that just, take on these projects that, like you said, you didn't think it would be this crazy monster, and now it's taken on a life of its own. And these tidbits of information are just, like I said, so interesting. I think helpful.
It's amazing the stories that are out there that we're missing, both because local media has been decimated in this country, in this
Mm-hmm.
state, in this country, but also because of the amount of information the people who have the information don't want us to see. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and it's scary. So thank you for fighting that good fight, because I think the more transparent things are, I know it won't necessarily make anything better, but like you said so many times while you were talking, like the more we know, at least we then know and can make a judgment call based on having that information, and it's called public record for a reason. So with that Freedom of Information Act, I mean, we just have it's like you said, like I would get also poked and have been poked. When it's like you're asking for something that you know, like, okay, there's a law that says they should be able to access this information, and then they're telling you crazy talk back.
Yeah, it's not quite. It hasn't been quite as bad as what the mass dump is dealing with the DA's office. That is beyond the pale. But like I have some folks who are like, they go to their town council, and the town council has boilerplate about this specific exemption that the boilerplate wasn't updated when the law was. So I have to keep writing them back and say, actually, you missed the last line in the sentence. Send me the stuff. Things like that. There's a few folks who don't like me anymore. There's a few towns I probably shouldn't drive in for a while. But beyond that, it's been a very interesting and very fulfilling project, and I'm glad that I'm able to take part of it, and I'm glad I'm able to take time for it. And I just hope that other people get as much out of it as I do.
I just want to say I'm really sorry that you had to say, or you felt the need to so casually say there's some towns you shouldn't drive through for a while. And it's not a joke.
It isn't a joke. It is, but it isn't, because it's like, okay, I'm a middle-aged white guy driving a thing. I'm not going to run into any problems.
You have a good shield on. I have
one. But like, that is the reality for a lot of people. And that is the reality for a lot of people. And we know more about that reality if these records were out there.
Absolutely.
Maybe we wouldn't be so reflexively supportive of the state of policing in this country if people had more information on this. And it's like, you can't reason somebody out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. But, at some point the scales come off, It's like that old thing that was going around Twitter years ago. What radicalized you? Well, you know what? This radicalized me a little bit. It's the amount of fighting I'm doing for some of these towns that literally have nothing to report. There's one town, the town of Gill. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go back into this. The town of Gill has like
that's near me. That's very close by. Okay. Yeah.
So you get lost and maybe end up in Gill for 5 minutes. Like that's how small this town is.
Very
they maybe
small.
have 3 officers, and you would think that like I am like trying to like pry their firstborn from their hands the way that this chief is fighting me on it. And it's
that's
like,
good.
I want to almost call the guy and be like, dude, either like, it's the story itself now. What are you hiding? What is so important to you about your specific records in the town of Gill?
Yeah, it's a very sleepy little farm town. So it's interesting.
Yeah. But they're a gang. It's a gang. I'm sorry. It's a gang. It's a gang. It's trash, especially in these small towns out where we are, and like, or even the small cities like Holyoke and Greenfield. They literally run the place like moonshiners. It's fucking insane. And then what radicalized me, just so everybody knows, I was already like, I kind of was born with I was born to a libertarian who's like kind of a white supremacist now. So we've distanced ourselves.
That radicalized
you. This is why you're in your own basement as opposed to this, right?
Well, I wish we got along, but I can't hang out with them. So, but I did have a relative distrust of police because of the libertarian streak in my but as an adult, seeing how much people simp for cops really kind of pushed.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy.
I thought manliness, I thought like the epitome of patriarchy is being like an individual where you don't need nothing. And these people get so emotional and angry and projecting onto you what all they feel, because you're like, fuck paying these dudes an arm and a leg to fucking kill brown people. Like I can't, I don't understand it. I was raised Catholic. I am not a Catholic, but the one thing I did get was Jesus kind of hated cops. So
it's funny because like you know, like I am not your prototypical, fight the police guy. Like, I was a registered Republican until about 5 years ago, like this is not my, like, it's not my lane. But it's like, to your point, I come from a family that has law enforcement involved in it. My cousin's a cop. My uncle was the chief of police in town. My father worked for 25 years in the prisons in the state, like, I've seen the other side of it. And, I mean, I know things now that perhaps I didn't know when I was growing up, but it's like, like, I understand where they're coming from on a lot of it, but it's like, why don't you want to have the information to know that this isn't okay? What needs to happen? So this made national news when it happened in Millbury about probably about 8 years ago. One of the cops in town had BLM spray painted on the side of his house. Turns out his wife did it to do insurance fraud.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
always the case.
Ew.
Literally,
Wow.
or they like a congresswoman did that. Nancy
Oh.
Hayes. Remember
Yeah.
that?
Oh,
She
yeah.
did it,
Oh, yeah.
She wrote it towards her house. It was like, and she did the A like a Valley girl. Sorry.
Yeah.
But why
like,
would, oh my gosh, I would never even go there. It's so weird. Oh.
But the thing is, like, so it's like, Millbury gets in the news like once every 10 years or so. It's always for something
terrible.
ridiculous like this, so it's like, this guy, the guy, his wife, he was the canine officer in town as well. So it's like, everybody loves Kenzo, the cops, the cop dog, and it's like, everybody's like, of course he's cleared of all wrongdoing. Like, this was totally just his wife doing it. Sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, one, that doesn't show up on their post record. But two, it's like, if you've got a cop in town, in your hometown, that is so brazenly willing to have this happen under his nose, and nothing comes of it and nothing happens, like, isn't that going to make you think for a second before putting the I heart the Millbury police sign in your yard? I don't know.
You'd
To
think
me,
so.
it would.
Yeah, you'd think so. Because you're paying so much, and like, if you're someone in that town and you care about the police, like, at all, like, if you really did, like, say I'm a homeowner in that town, like, my taxes are going towards a huge chunk of that. Like, I mean, just that, like, fiscally alone, just thinking about that alone, it's very upsetting. Like, once you realize, like, this person's, first of all, insurance frauding, blaming his wife, like, he has no idea what's going on in his own home. And then they're blaming, like, BLM. Like, it's just a very layered, horrible
It's right.
story for the town too.
And this was pre-Trump stuff too. So it's like, I know that,
Oh my
like, Central
God.
Mass is like the Trump corridor of the state, but
Mhm.
it's this predates all of that. This predates all of the really major changes and structural questioning that we're all doing as a society, and it was like, they found a way to exploit it then and almost got away with it. And it's like, and even to this day, we still, everybody's like, ha, remember when that happened? It's like, yeah, I don't ever forget that happened, guys. that was a very poor showing by us.
Yeah, that's a bad one, everyone. That's a bad one. Oh my goodness. Yeah, these stories are just, I think, so your goal is, now you're in the appeal, just to wrap this, like, process up, not even to, like, stop you, but if you have anything, jump in. But so your goal now is to appeal it was a certain 200 potentially.
All right, so this is a timeline on it. So in April, I sent out 350 odd requests to every town in the
Every
state.
town. Okay.
Every single one. Now, some of the towns don't actually have police departments. I learned that after they wrote back and we were like, we don't have anybody that we can answer this because we don't have a department. But of the ones that got back to me, roughly 225 of them gave me the same boilerplate language I was talking about from the Mass Chiefs Police Association. So I finished the last batch of my first round of appeals to the state. The state will not let you do a one, even though they sent me the same thing 225 times, I had to appeal each town individually. And an appeal takes at least 10 minutes a time to put together, even if it's the same response over and over again. I have since gotten back just about everybody now, if not everybody, for the first round of them. Some of them took that response from the state, where the state was like, no, you need to actually give him a compliant response, and decided to just give me a more detailed no, that then I then appeal. So I will probably be at about 300 appeals to the state by the time this is said and done, and that's just for this project. So they know me very well. I've apologized to them a couple times about ruining their inboxes on a Monday morning, but you know, the state, to their credit, the state records office, as infuriating as it can be sometimes, is very pro transparency. They don't mess around when it comes to trying to get these towns on board. The issue they run into is that they don't have an enforcement mechanism. They can just, you know, send letters to the town saying, no, you actually need to do this. And, you know, unless I'm willing to sue, some of them will never come around with these records. I know that for a fact, but you know, we'll get there when we get there. That's still a ways away. That's when I'll put the cup out for donations, when I need to pay a lawyer.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but if anybody listening can, as Jeff so nicely said, like, if you can do records requests, like he said, it takes time. It's just grunt work.
It's manpower. That's the hardest part. And the thing is, like, you know, I am willing to walk anybody, literally anybody, through doing records requests for their own towns, for their own regions, you know, because it's actually, you know, if you are a particular sort of person like I am, it's actually a lot of fun. I really enjoy the process of it. I enjoy the, you know, putting something out there and getting something in return that is going to benefit everybody along the way. You know, it's a fun little thing, and you know, I would love to share that fun with others if anybody is so inclined.
I'll throw down the gauntlet, and maybe this will radicalize you, Jeff. But one area if you really want to start pulling your hair out is
I don't have any hair left. It's nothing on top.
you got a beard.
Yeah, that's true.
You really want to start pulling your hair out, ask departments to give you their weapons inventory.
Yeah, I did try that, and they don't
Speaking
like
of firearms going, being mishandled, you know, Holyoke has multiple stories. Go ahead. We you know, Joanna and I have a pretty full plate because we also, like you said, work full-time jobs elsewhere, and we just like having a platform to talk about these things, and because we recognize, you know, the corporate legacy media is not concerned with this for whatever reason, and you said local journalism has been really decimated, so this all ties together. So it has to be a community effort. We have to rebuild this institution. But if anybody wants to take the challenge and wonder why I'm the way I am, Joanna and I have only done light digging on the surface, and we also have other friends that have asked their police departments about their weapons inventory, and the fight they put up and the things they say are very revealing. For example, in Holyoke, I can speak about my experience in my home city. They basically said to us, after multiple appeals, the Secretary of State agreeing with us, you have to share some sort of inventory or some sort of acknowledgement of these weapons and the money you've spent on these weapons, yada, yada, yada. That's reasonable. We know because our neighboring towns have handed over some information. That's how we found out they had grenade launchers. So that's the kind of stuff they have, and they don't want us to know they have. So think about that.
Isn't Holyoke like the founding place of volleyball?
And yeah, and it's the paper city as well.
Right, and you've got a grenade launcher in your police department. That's just
Well, they wouldn't tell us. East Hampton actually has the grenade launcher.
Oh, well, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it does.
East Hampton has that. We also wonder because Holyoke's corruption and misuse of funds is like very like notorious. So especially with their police department, and it would be really interesting. I mean, the chief of police in Holyoke, he refers to you know, weapons of war as like a kid on Christmas when he was asking for toys. Kid on Christmas.
I do wonder what they have because of not just because of that, but more so because of that.
they said we can't tell you because they didn't say it like this, but I'll just paraphrase it. It would give a tactical advantage to somebody that would have interest of knowing what kind of weapons we have. And it's like
Everything is a security breach.
Right?
Everything is a security
Right?
breach.
is there an
So
army I'm not aware of? And
yeah,
am I
seriously.
part of that? Do you consider me an insurgent? Because I'm asking what money you spent on, I don't know, machine guns. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So it's funny you bring that sort of thing up, because it's like one of the weird, unexpected storylines that have come out of seeing all these records. And it's like I try to at least scan through each one as I get them. Some of them are incredibly dull, but then you find how many of these police officers like to borrow the guns from their gun buybacks to shoot at a range before turning it in. There are a much larger number of those than you would imagine, and it is such a very weird, like, I don't get gun culture at all. Like, that is just way outside of my
Weird.
zone. But it is such a weird thing where, like, a department gets a Glock from a gun buyback, and the guy's like, hey, I'd really like to take this and bring it to the gun range, and everybody's like, sure, let's do it. and and it's like, they're all getting written up for, like, not writing down the borrowing policy properly or something like that. Or, the one cop that left the gun on a windowsill for the sergeant to intake later on or something like that. It's such a very bizarre little minor through line that I kept finding over and over again. Someday I'll do a story of all the towns that have cops that misuse gun buyback guns.
Yeah, that's scary.
in Holyoke, they've had in the last like 5 years, they've had multiple cop stories that's made it even to, like, Mass Live about officer being reprimanded for leaving a gun at the Holyoke Mall. It happened multiple times. It's like,
is he an SRO in Holyoke?
who knows? Like, leaving it was like left in the restroom or something. So they took their holster off and probably never put their holster back on. We're like, yeah. Regardless, it's just like they treat these guns like a chef treats his chef knives. Like, chef knives are dangerous, and even I don't know a chef that's ever left their chef knives in
the bathroom. No way, man.
Like, when I worked in the city, when the people treat their knives like their baby, and apparently these guys treat their guns like they're disposable. I was leaving here on the windsill like it's a used coffee cup.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. The buyback thing, I didn't even know they could do that.
Yeah, neither did I.
Okay. I was like, am I missing something here?
I mean, the thing is, like, every department has different policies, and the thing is, if they put the guns in their armory, they can check out things from the armory for training purposes.
Oh my god.
Okay, I can conceptualize that along the way.
Yeah.
But it's like, then you got we had a guy in Millbury do it, and it's like, he clearly was, like, trying to hide the fact that he wanted to use it, which seemed really weird, because I'm pretty sure that if he had gone through the regular channels, nobody would have blinked. But it's just such a weird thing where it's like, you do a buyback because you say these guns are dangerous and you don't want them on the street. Okay. But, you're going to take them to a gun range anyway, just to try them out for funsies. Like, what is that?
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
What happens if that gun has been mishandled over the years and this officer gets injured while
God forbid, it's crazy.
And they get, and it's like, this is needless risk up and down. Like, what we need is the insurance companies to stop insuring these fucking guys. It's the only thing that talks in this country is when insurance companies walk like they're out in Florida with because of all the natural disasters happening. I mean, all the insurance companies are pulling out. We need insurance companies to stop covering these guys' fucking bond.
Well, it's kind of, it goes beyond that, where it's like, like DeRay McKesson was doing a project during COVID where he was trying to get all the police union contracts. And it's like, the problem with the insurance thing, which you're talking about, like, that is a very easy sort of, like, I would recommend that people who really have really want to stick it to cops should really be looking toward that industry as opposed to the policing institutions, because you're never going to get popular will on your side. but you might be able to get people's pocketbooks on your side. And it's, one of those strategic things. But it's like, even if you got the insurance companies on the line, you still got the police unions. You still have folks like the Massachusetts Chief of Police Association that are willing to run interference for these officers and for their organizations. And it's like, it's like whack-a-mole. You hit one down and two more pop up on the side, and what's left? You got three of us, who do this sort of work on the side when we have time, while we're trying to deal with the rest of our lives. Meanwhile, they can go ahead and, spend 8 hours working on public records requests and keeping them from us along the way. It's gross.
You said it, sir. Thank you for saying it so clearly.
Yeah.
I tend to go on these rants and I get mad, and then don't want to listen to me. But that was
the worst part of this for me. The worst thing was like, she, like, my wife had said midway through, like, that she was like, she's looking at cops a little differently now. And it's one of those deals where it's, it's not like she's becoming like this radical or anything like that, but, she's worried about me getting targeted. And it's like, I'm not worried about that. I probably should be worried about that, but I'm not worried about that.
This is something that's come in my house. So you know what I said to her? And I dare them. I dare them, because they won't leave a white widow. They just fucking won't.
Oh my God.
Sorry. They just fucking won't. And if they do, like, I'm sorry, not only my friends and family going to be pissed and give resolve about it. Like, this is unfortunately the deal with the white person's skin. Unfortunate for the marginalized people in our communities. It's not right. It's not fair, but like, we got to kind of, being two white men, we kind of do have to take the risk. Like, we have.
But it is scary, like, as a partner or a wife or someone else, like, in your life. Like, I do worry.
She didn't sign up for this,
Well, yeah, and I even worry. I worry about myself as a woman and as a person. Like, if I'm alone late at night and the police were going to be upset, like, that radicalizes me alone to be afraid of them just for wanting information. If that makes sense.
Bridget radicalized me. I want to just make that clear to everybody. She's the one who dragged me to this point.
Oh, your wife.
Yeah.
Leave her out. Leave her alone. Jesus sake.
She has though. She's like, I was saying fuck these guys a long time ago.
Well, she knows.
She's a social worker. She sees how it's systemically fucked up. That's what she's school for. And luckily she hasn't been jaded by being a social worker yet.
So I will say, I want to give some props. I used to work for the UMass Chan Medical School.
Oh, nice.
And so they have a consulting division that I worked with. And one of their divisions is they now call it the Justice and Health Equity Group. And if there was working with any group of people that made me really rethink how we deal with incarceration in this country and how we deal with, policing and the homeless, it's these folks at UMass who are doing such unheralded work in rehabs, in getting people in the drug courts off of their drugs and out of the pipeline, with the homeless populations in Worcester. Like, it was, like, I loved working with their group because they were making such a huge on the ground difference, and they understood and were able to conceptualize in a real term the sort of cycle of incarceration to homeless to, addiction to jail back again. They were able to put it in such a really concise way that, even a dummy like me could figure it out, and it's just, it's crazy that you need to be exposed to it a certain way to feel a certain way about it. Like, I consider myself well-read and I consider myself pretty informed, but it took till 2021 for me to really fully grasp the thing. Like, I'm 42 years old. I should have figured this out 20 years ago,
Hey, at least you figured it out, though. You know what I mean?
Well, that's true, and that's, it's never too late to, it's never too late to start putting in the work. And,
exactly.
if people feel, if people hear this and feel inspired to do some stuff in their community, then this was worth every minute that I took doing it,
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, it's great when you start to see the bigger picture and connect the dots. It's awesome. And it doesn't just don't want to discourage anybody listening at home. The fact that you did is a testament to who you are. You're willing to grow. we have been thoroughly indoctrinated to a system, especially as white, middle upper working class people, or even working class white people. We've been accustomed to some things that we can't even see, even though we have our own individual hardships. That doesn't invalidate your individual hardships, but it's important that you come around and recognize, as white folk, we got to do our own work, and it will help everybody else, because if we unite, what the real power struggle is power is money is power, I should say. And the real struggle is the haves and the have nots, which most of us are the have nots, and we need to overcome that. But hey, it's a testament to who we are when you critical think, no matter how old you are. So just it's not a bad thing that you took to it's a testament to you willing to learn something new.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've learned quite a bit from these public records, let me tell you.
Yeah, that too. I mean, it's just, I again have to just say thank you. I'm excited to hear more about the project. I hope we can check back in with you and see where you're at, like in the end stages.
Yeah, no, so I'll give some plugs again. On Twitter, Jeff and Milbury is my policy-based Twitter account. As long as it's doesn't burn to the ground in a fiery hellscape, that's probably the easiest way to find me. But the Mass Transparency Project is at masstransparency.org. I would love any sort of manpower or help or assistance. You can do a public records request from the couch while watching Netflix. It's doable. You too can be intrepid journalists exposing light into the other reaches of the universe. And beyond that, get involved in your local communities, because if you don't get involved, nobody else will. It's a simple truth.
We will link all places to find you that you mentioned on our web episode notes, which you can find at www.theweedout.com. And programming note for everybody listening, we finally got our YouTube page up. So if YouTube is your preferred destination for content right now, we have the audio of the podcast up. It's nothing too sexy, but it's just another place to find us, because I know some people prefer YouTube. And in the future, we will have more multimedia. But as Jeff may know, we're just doing we just try to follow through with what we can, and we can definitely do the audio podcast and edit that and get it out in a timely fashion. And we hope to have you back on, and to discuss more specific stories. That's kind of been our thing. Like we had Andrew on, for example, just to tell us about like what he does, and talking about small town corruption in Egremont, Massachusetts, and had him on a bunch of episodes. And now he's on.
That's a story. That's a good one. People
It
should
was,
go back to that one. That's a
episode 19. I recommend anybody go. Please, we'll also link the episodes I listed earlier in the show notes, because I feel like those are very. If you're new to the show and you got to us through Jeff, those episodes are very intimately linked to what we just spoke about record and the role of independent journalism, and specifically hyper local. We can make a change. We can build infrastructure and structures around the structures that aren't currently working for us. So working class solidarity, without the work of people like Jeff, we can't do what we do here at the Weedout. So we thank you very much for coming on. And just want to throw this out there, Jeff, if you want to stick around, we do like a rapid fun little game called Ghoulery and Tomfoolery on the way out. And
let's do it.
So it's just a hot take, I guess is the what the elder millennials would say.
Right.
yeah, that's what we'd say.
Take maybe is what the millennials say. So yeah,
You'd say this segment slaps. Is that where we're going with this? Yeah.
That's too young for me.
So for anybody new listening, Ghoulery and Tomfoolery is where I highlight some ridiculous shit I find. Most of the time it's local to Western Mass, but sometimes we go national, because it's just it's good to mention some of these things to remind you that this is real life. So this week I'm going to share on Ghoulery and Tomfoolery. I'm going to share a tweet from Kenny Akers, of Blue Check Verified. So, take
yeah
what it means. But they have a story they're sharing. Remember these 5 Memphis police officers? Let me introduce you to a whistleblower, retired Detective Mark Leisure of the same department. He's been on the news several times and very outspoken about the Memphis police force and their handling of Tyree Nichols incident. Leisure has been found shot and dead in his driveway. So this man has been going on about, police brutality for a department he used to work for, and he got killed Godfather style or Goodfellas style on his fucking front lawn, and nobody's talking. Nobody knows who did it in the front lawn, daylight. Anyways, so I guess the guest, Jeff, let's go. Your take first.
There are a lot of really dark jokes that went through my head that I'm just gonna leave on the table. That is special. That is something else. Yeah, I don't know. It's like if you're gonna go to that extent, like that, isn't that what car bombs are for? Like that's I don't know. That's crazy.
This is America, though. We're gunslingers.
That's true. That's true. Rootin' tootin'.
European. That's a little European, you know. Joanna, what's your take?
Oh, so this is a dark one. I mean, it's like, okay, so like you want to say like, oh, there's like these good cops and this like retired detective was the whistleblower, and then like he's found dead in his own driveway. Um, and then the cops withhold information from nice people like Jeff, just wondering what's going on. So, I mean, these are the reasons why I'm like kind of a radical transparency person too. Because you just wonder what's going on. You can't say for sure they did it, but what is happening in that police force?
If there was only some organization that could investigate these crimes.
If only. So yeah, I mean, this is a dark one because God bless, the family of Tyrese Nichols, and that incident was just so difficult for I think all of Memphis. Eventually, it's like these eye-opening incidences that occur across the country where, again, I guess it just ties back for me to transparency. I just don't see why, if we're paying these people through our tax money in our community to keep us quote unquote safe, why can't we see how, what, where, when, why you're doing that? And that's really my take on it.
Well, my take is I'm not shocked. I feel like I know we know about 1,200 people a year being shot by police. I personally believe the number's higher because there's things just are never figured out or linked to them. They are the DOJ study in 2018 concluded they kill somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 dogs a year. And that's assuming they're reporting them. That's why that gap is so big. They know of 5,000 a year, and they have no accountability. And even the stuff we do find, you wonder how much more stuff is there. Sometimes they have nowhere to go, and they actually have to tell some version of the truth. I mean, how many video games, how many movies, how many things you have to see where even where it's trying to paint the cops as good guys, it's still like, well, they had to bend the rules a little bit to get justice. Like they condition us to that, the propaganda and all that stuff. And it's just like, damn, it's so obvious.
It's funny because it's funny you say that because it's like, there's what was a show? I think it was called The Shield. It might have been called The Shield, whatever. Michael Chiklis, the large bald guy. It was like it. Yeah, I know. I'm not narrowing it down very well, but it's like like that was the type of guy he was, and it's like my father would be like, hey, Michael Chiklis, that character's great guy, and I'm like, I don't think that's the takeaway we're supposed to be getting from this, but The Wire was not a blueprint, guys.
Bruce Willis in Die Hard. It's like, I don't want my cops to I don't know, be
like rogue
Superman. Like I don't want that. I don't see look how many people died because of he was just so focused on his independent mission to protect his family. It was not about anybody. Like
as one president put it, they're not sending their best. It's
What are you gonna do? Anyway, so that was Ghouler and Tomfoolery, everybody. This week was Ghoulery. It wasn't fun. at all. It's actually depressing. I mean, the senseless murder of Tyrese Nichols, Tyree, excuse me, I'm sorry, Tyree Nichols was not. It was completely disgusting, and then now somebody else is dead because of it. It's senseless, and we pay them how much money to do what again? So that's all I have to say to the people listening. Thank you very much, Jeff, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for always, tweeting out my stuff and getting it out there a little more. I always love the support, and looking forward to seeing what comes next, what gets uncovered next.
Yes, we are too. Please share anything juicy with us. It's very, I mean, like everything you've shared has been interesting to me. So
Thank
please.
you.
Yeah.
We believe in building this network of people that just want to find the truth and be frank about what will keep us safe. And we appreciate all the work that you and many others are doing. So keep it up, and it's not for naught.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right, everybody listening, take care. And Joanna, you want to take it out for us?
Take care, everyone. Please like, share, follow. Go over and check out Jeff and his Twitter, and check out masstransparency.org. Please try to stay cool if you're here in Western Mass. Drink the water, touch grass, and we'll see you soon. We'll talk to you soon.